Rule number 1. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Rule number 2. Never go outside the expertise of your people. Rule number 3. Whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Rule number 4. Make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. Rule number 5. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. Rule number 6. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. Rule number 7. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Rule number 8. Keep the pressure on. Never let up. Rule number 9. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. Rule number 10. The major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. Rule number 11. If you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. Rule number 12. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Rule number 13. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Lest we forget, at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical, from all our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which? The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer, by Saul Alinsky. This has been yet another PSA by Breaking Spectre. Well, good morning, everybody. How we doing? Spectre here on this now 22nd day of September here. Is today the first day of fall, or was that yesterday? I don't know. I lost track already. Either way, I think fall is upon us. It definitely feels like it in my neck of the woods. Some pretty chilly mornings here, and I don't even think we're supposed to get up in the 70s for the day here, but lots of news to get through here this morning. We'll cover some of the financials, things going on here in the early onset, and of course I'll leave the stream up throughout the day. You guys can bounce in and out as you see fit. Leave the old headlines roll through, and anything that triggers my fancy, I suppose, I'll throw up on the old screen there. And like I said, you can check it out throughout the day, and then I'll close things out a little bit later on as well. And oh, by the way, still do a show over on 5x5 this afternoon around 3 p.m. Eastern as well. So, that being said, let's get into it here. Couple things going on here this morning. There we go. All right, so let's start off with the old financials here. Futures bounce on Evergrande reprieve with Fed looming. And I believe today is the FOMC meeting. Yep, there we go. Says despite today's looming hawkish FOMC meeting in which Powell is widely expected to unveil that tapering is set to begin as soon as November, and where the Fed's dot plot may signal one rate hike in 2022, futures climbed as investors' concerns over China's Evergrande eased after the property developer negotiated a domestic bond payment deal. Of course, all that brought about by PBOC, People's Bank of China. Commodities rallied while the dollar was steady. Contracts on the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 flipped from losses to gains as China's central bank boosted liquidity when it injected a gross 120 billion in yuan, the most since January. And there we kind of see that depicted on the graphic there. So then investors mulled a vaguely worded statement from the troubled developer about an interest payment. S&P 500 E-minis were up 23 points, or about 0.5%, at 7:30 a.m. Eastern. Dow E-minis were up 199 points, or about 0.6%, and NASDAQ 100 E-minis were up 44 points, or about 1/3 of a point, or percentage rather. So, among individual stocks, FedEx fell 5.8% after the delivery company cut its profit outlook on higher costs and stalled growth in shipments. Morgan Stanley says it sees the company's first quarter issues getting tougher from here. Commodity-linked oil and metal stocks led gains in pre-market trade, while a slight rise in Treasury yields supported major banks. However, most sectors were nursing steep losses in recent sessions. Here are some of the biggest U.S. movers. So Adobe was down 3.1% after third quarter update disappointed the high expectations of investors, though the broader picture still looks solid, Morgan Stanley said in a note. Freeport McMoran, FCX US, Cleveland Cliffs, Alcoa, and US Steel up 2 to 3% pre-market, following the path of global peers as iron ore prices in China rallied. Athlon Medical, AEMD US, and Exela Technologies advance along with other retail trader favorites in the U.S. pre-market session. Athlon jumps 21%, Exela up 8.3%. Other so-called meme stocks also rise. Context Logic was up about 1%, Clover Health almost 1%, Naked Brand similar, AMC about 0.5% up as well. Rewalk Robotics slumps 18% in U.S. pre-market trading a day after nearly doubling in value. Stitch Fix rises 15.7% in light volume after the personal styling company's fourth quarter profit and sales blew past analyst expectations. Hyatt Hotels seen opening lower after the company launches a 7 million share stock offering. Summit Therapeutics shares fell as much as 17% in Tuesday, extended trading after it said the FDA doesn't agree with the change to the primary endpoint that has been implemented in the ongoing Phase 3 RI-CODIFI studies when combining the studies. Interesting. Marin Software surged more than 75% Tuesday post-market after signing a new revenue-sharing agreement with Google to develop its enterprise technology platforms and software products. Interesting. Google apparently getting ever bigger, and alliances continuing to be made. What happened to those antitrust lawsuits? Anyway, carrying on some of the other highlights here, Entain shares jump as much as 11% after DraftKings Inc. offered to acquire the UK gambling company for about $22.4 billion. I think that news came out yesterday. Vivendi rises as much as 3.1% in Paris after Tuesday's spin-off of Universal Music Group. Legrand climbs as much as 2.1% after Exane BNP Paribas upgrades to outperform and raises PT to a street high of EU 135. Orpea shares fall as much as 2.9% after delivering first half results that Jefferies says were a touch below consensus. Bechtel slides as much as 5.1% after Metzler downgrades to hold from buy, saying persistent supply chain problems seem to be weighing on growth. Sopra Steria drops as much as 4.1% after Stifel initiates coverage with a sell, citing caution on company's mergers and acquisitions strategy. Some other highlights here. Heading down to the old snapshot, S&P 500 futures up 0.4% to 43.62 and change. The stocks Europe 600 up 0.5% to 461 and change there. See the Nikkei down 0.7% to 29,639 and change there. Shanghai Composite up 4.4%, 36.28 and change. Brent futures up 1.5% to 75.47 a barrel. Gold spot up, or how can it be up if it's flat? I think it should say gold flat at 1775.15, but I digress. U.S. dollar index little change at 93.26. Some other news out of Bloomberg overnight says what would it take to knock the U.S. recovery off course and send Federal Reserve policymakers back to the drawing board? Not much, and there are plenty of candidates to deliver the blow. The European Central Bank will discuss boosting its regular asset purchases once the pandemic-era emergency stimulus comes to an end, but any such increase is uncertain, Governing Council member Mattis Muller said. Investors seeking hints about how Beijing plans to deal with China Evergrande Group's debt crisis are training their crosshairs on the central bank's liquidity management. Some other stuff out of News Squawk here. Back over to Asia. It says gold steady as traders await outcome of Fed policy meeting. Evergrande's filing on yuan bond interest leaves analysts guessing. Singapore Category E COE price rises to highest since April 2014. And Asian stocks fall for third day as focus turns to central banks. Turning back to Europe, says energy cost spikes get on EU ministers' Green Deal agenda. Travel startup Home to Go gains in Frankfurt debut after SPAC deal. London Stock Exchange to shut down Curve Global Exchange. And EU banks expected to add capital to climate risk, EBA says. And as far as the event calendar, well, today, August existing home sales month over month estimated down 1.7, prior was 2%. And of course, today at 2 p.m., the September FOMC rate decision. And of course, obviously, they're expecting to see rate hikes and perhaps some tapering of the quantitative easing, and that has been going on. Oh, to the tune of about 120 billion a month since January of last year. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I had a little tickle in the old throat. That being said, some other interesting news on the day. We find out that PVC prices hit record high as home building costs soar. So obviously the implications of all of this money printing and that has taken place since January of last year is that, all the commodity prices, all the building blocks and staples, things that you typically use are getting bid way up. PVC, oil, all that stuff is no different. The cost of a key building material used in everything from vinyl siding to gutters to windows and doors to flooring to plumbing jumped to a fresh record high. U.S. Gulf Coast export PVC spot prices printed $1,900 per metric ton for the week ending September 10th, up more than 30% since June. And I think that Ida, the recent tropical, well, I guess it wasn't a tropical storm, but rather hurricane that just recently came through the Gulf coast and shuttered a lot of platforms, and that probably had a little bit of an effect on that as well. So there you see that PVC prices moving higher on the charts there. Says according to Bloomberg, the latest jump in prices due to Hurricane Ida, disrupting 60% of the U.S.'s polyvinyl chloride production. The hurricane delivered a devastating blow to petrochemical factories on the Gulf Coast as buyers go elsewhere for plastics. We're now hearing some buyers there are looking to Asia for supply at the moment. Jeremy Pafford, head of North America's Independent Commodity Intelligence Services. Expectations are that the tight supply situation will continue for several weeks. Home builders and homeowners cannot catch a break when it comes to the cost of materials. Earlier this year, lumber jumped to new highs on supply chain woes, but has since plunged, though it remained more than double the prices from COVID lows. D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in the U.S., warned Monday that significant disruptions in the supply chain, along with tightness in the labor market, will dent the full-year sales forecast. The update comes as similar warnings from homebuilder Pulte Group earlier this month warned that shortages for a variety of building products, combined with increased production volumes across the home building industry, are directly impacting our ability to get homes close to our level of quality over the remainder of 2021. Runaway construction cost growth, such as ongoing elevated prices for oriented strand board, OSB, that has skyrocketed by nearly 500% since January 2020, continues to put upward pressure on home prices, said NAHB Chairman Chuck Faulk. Policymakers must address supply chain bottlenecks for building materials that are raising costs and harming housing affordability, Faulk added. There could be more rallies ahead for PVC prices as there is no clear timeline on when petrochemical factories in Louisiana will come back online. One thing is sure, the cost of manufacturing PVC has risen due to soaring natural gas prices. As for now, the cost of building a home continues to rise, and it appears that inflation is becoming more persistent, discrediting the Federal Reserve's quote unquote transitory narrative. So, yeah, natural gas apparently not only affecting us here, and I'm going to touch upon that and have touched upon it in recent days, especially in what's going on in Europe and the UK. So now the UK power suppliers halt adding new customers as energy crisis worsens. And of course, this having a lot to do with natural gas. Yesterday we talked about CO2, how that's going to impact not just food and everything else, but whether or not you get chickens on your plate, to fruits and vegetables, to you name it. And of course, on top of that, we just saw that in the last week or so that a major cable net was cut between France and the UK as well. I think you guys get the idea where this is headed. So there's a growing risk that a bankruptcy wave of power providers is nearing as several small firms stopped accepting new customers Tuesday amid a worsening energy crisis, according to Bloomberg. Ampower, Green, Igloo, NEO, and Utilita Energy, there we go, posted notices on their websites earlier today that they weren't accepting new customers. This comes as several weaker rivals have already gone bankrupt as natural gas and power prices surged to record levels, leaving power suppliers who sold energy at lower prices underwater. So as we noted Monday, out of the 55 or so power suppliers, only 6 to 10 will be left standing after the smoke clears. So far, 5 have gone bust since the start of August, which coincides with surging wholesale costs of natural gas and electricity. A lot of these smaller ones are probably going to go, said Neil Trimble, Managing Director of Consultant Energy Contract Co. If you were planning to buy gas for 50 pence and it's 150 pence, that's a hell of a blow to your finances. And of course, we've highlighted this in recent days that natural gas prices in the UK, and the rest of Europe for that matter, continue to spike up. Bloomberg Intelligence's Patricio Alvarez said low inventories in Europe ahead of the winter season are primarily the triggers for UK's energy crisis. Here's more. Low gas inventories in Europe, ebbing pipeline imports, and strong Asian demand driving liquefied natural gas cargo diversions from a constructive backdrop for regional wholesale gas prices in the heating season. Tapering domestic output, competitive global LNG markets, and an increased gas burn for power generation amid carbon price volatility may keep balances tight in 2022 as a post-pandemic recovery unfolds. A mild winter could ease prices from record highs, while pipe supplies could improve from higher Norway volume and the potential startup of Russia's Nord Stream 2 by year's end. So, to Alvarez's point above, natural gas markets will be tight across the UK this winter and will support higher prices. This may cause a tidal wave of corporate failures and economic disruption, with industries that are heavily reliant on natural gas and byproducts. We've already mentioned slaughterhouses and the food industry being affected. That was in yesterday's print. So back to the bust of smaller power firms, Igloo's CEO Matt Klemow wrote on the company's website that, like some of our competitors, we have decided to pause sales activity for now. He said, with unprecedented wholesale prices, we have taken this decision to allow our teams to focus on those customers we already supply. According to Bloomberg, the government's cap of power prices for consumers, quote, means it's not profitable for larger companies to come to the rescue, end quote. UK Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng told Parliament Monday that the UK won't bail out power suppliers, but that was conflicting with UK Prime Minister Bojo's statement to reporters saying the government would do everything in its power to prevent a bankruptcy wave. On Monday, the retail arm of Centrica plc added 350,000 domestic customers and 500 businesses after it took over failed supplier People's Energy. So, keeping an eye on that, and I'm sure it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And as a highlight here, by the time it's said and done, consolidation of down to 6 to 10 seems like that consolidation has gone on in a number of sectors over the years. And it just makes you wonder if this was all pre-planned, as it were, right? And of course, back across the pond here, Subway records strongest August sales in 8 years after brand refresh. This put out by Restaurant Dive. Summary says Subway recorded its highest August sales since 2013 on the tails of rolling out a brand refresh campaign, according to an announcement. The Eat Fresh Refresh initiative, launched on July 13, represents the largest changes to Subway's menu in company history, with over 20 updates, as well as renewed commitments to digital technology. Total sales of U.S. restaurants were up 4% in August compared to 2019 figures, with Subway's top performing quartile. A group representing over 5,000 store locations seeing transactions up 33% versus 2 years ago. The sandwich chain now expects to surpass its 2021 sales plan by more than $1 billion, a needed boost after standing as a laggard in the category. But Subway is still contending with headwinds, including recent tensions around its pick of brand ambassadors. So Subway is drawing a direct link between the Eat Fresh, Refresh strategy and a sales boost in the summer period, including its highest weekly average unit volume transactions in 8 years. The planned multi-year overhaul touches across the chain's business with a menu makeover consisting of 11 new and improved ingredients, 6 new or returning sandwiches, and 4 revamped signature sandwiches. Give me some Sammys, 6-foot Sammys, huh? The brand at the same time is remodeling stores and introducing an updated visual identity, along with putting larger priority on digital capabilities that have become must-haves for restaurants during the pandemic, with adjustments to its ordering platform and the debut of a direct delivery service. Interesting. Changes on the operational side of the business are complemented by what the company has billed as never-ending marketing campaign. Subway tapped a roster of celebrity athletes such as Serena Williams, Tom Brady, Steph Curry, and Megan Rapinoe to promote the retooling to consumers. A series of TV ads titled "It's Too Much for One Spokesperson" pokes fun at the scale of the campaign, with ambassadors stepping on each other's lines. Yeah, what the heck, we'll let the old ad play through here.
Their bread game with the help of some world-class bakers. Looking at you, Nance.
Gotta refresh to be fresh.
How many people are in this ad?
That means freshly baked, new artisan Italian, and hearty multigrain. That would go good with... Seriously? I didn't even get to finish. See you next commercial.
Interesting. Sorry about that. I screwed up the audio just a little bit on that, but nonetheless, says the effort also encompasses hundreds of new pieces of digital and social creative in-store and print elements. Subway's marketing is overseen by Carrie Walsh, who was appointed CMO in 2019 after stints at Pizza Hut and PepsiCo. Subway suggested that consumers have generally been receptive to the revamp, and in a survey of 66,000 customers, 83% reported enjoying the menu updates, per the announcement. We are getting an extremely positive reaction from our guests regarding all that is new at Subway, said David Lacino, a multi-unit franchisee in central New York State, in a press statement. Some research has uncovered pushback against Subway's spokespeople. An August survey by People-Say, is that right? People-Say? Yeah, I guess so. People-Say revealed nearly half, 45% of U.S. consumers said Subway should drop Rapinoe, an outspoken member of the United States women's national soccer team. Rapinoe generated outcry over her decision to kneel during the Tokyo Olympics as a protest against racism. And I probably would join that sentiment. And last but not least here on the morning, out of Australia here, they had a very rare earthquake rocking Melbourne, buildings shake across Australia. One of the most powerful onshore earthquakes that rocked the state of Victoria, Australia, couldn't have come at a worse time, as anti-lockdown protesters are fed up with the government's COVID restrictions and vaccine requirements. According to Geoscience Australia, a magnitude 5.9 earthquake struck around 9:15 local time, about 75 miles northeast of Melbourne, causing damage to buildings. So apparently this is kind of the general location, I suppose. It says photos and videos flooded social media of the aftermath. It appears some buildings in Melbourne were damaged. So far, local officials are reporting no casualties. Dan Jaxa on Geoscience says this collapse says more about the building's stock in Melbourne than the size of the earthquake. Lucky the earthquake occurred during lockdown. Another win for @Daniel Andrews MP, perhaps? Bloomberg Quick Take says a magnitude 5.8 earthquake, Australia's biggest in 5 years, has caused damage in Melbourne. The quake was at a depth of 10 kilometers. Seems that's the common depth of most earthquakes, right?
Yes, we've had some damage, but the main thing is everybody's safe. There was only one person up there, they got out, so there was no injuries. Just a bit of a surprise.
And carrying on that theme, a man that can do both, says building damage in Melbourne after the earthquake. Another one here.
Oh my God. This is...
There's that guy. And Melbourne rocked by a magnitude 6 earthquake. I'll let this one play through here for a minute.
But if it's too
Oh, I've never had an earthquake in here before.
Oh my God.
Dude, is that an earthquake?
It's gonna collapse. Wow.
There might be another one.
Yeah, I know. Stay in the middle of the road, mate. Don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. Where did it? Oh, it's the top, man.
Yeah, it's
Oh my God.
So, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison updated the press on the ongoing situation and said quakes are very rare events in Australia. Several tremors were felt after the initial quake. Reuters had this say, correction, a magnitude 6.0 earthquake struck near Melbourne, causing damage to buildings in the country's second largest city and sending tremors throughout neighboring state. And we are deleting a previous video to correct a courtesy.
One of Australia's biggest earthquakes on record struck the state of Victoria on Wednesday. Government agency Geoscience Australia said it registered at a magnitude of 6.0 and that its epicenter was near a rural town northeast of Melbourne. The earthquake caused damage to buildings in the country's second largest city, with rubble blocking one of its main streets. Residents of Melbourne recounted the moment the quake hit.
Very scary. Telling the kids just to get ready to get out in the streets just in case.
I looked outside and from my balcony you could see the other buildings moving as well and the power line shaking.
Tremors could also be felt throughout neighbouring states and cities as far as Adelaide and Sydney. More than half of Australia's population of 25 million live in these affected areas, though no deaths have so far been reported. Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who is currently in Washington, D.C. to meet with U.S. President Joe Biden, spoke to reporters in a news conference.
At this stage, we have had no reports of serious injuries or worse, and that is very good news. It can be a very disturbing event for an earthquake of this nature. They are very rare events in Australia, and as a result, I'm sure people would have been quite distressed and disturbed by that.
The country's Bureau of Meteorology said it had not issued a tsunami threat following the earthquake, which measured higher than the country's deadliest tremor in 1989 that killed 13 people.
So, the timing of the quake comes as people in Melbourne are under COVID lockdowns, and on Tuesday more than 20,000 anti-lockdown protesters clashed with police and shut down city streets. Dee Ninnies at the Seismology Research Center in Melbourne said the metro area should be thankful the epicenter of the quake occurred outside town, which was not in a populated place. And it appears through some of the videos, everybody was all taking pictures and videos of the same building. So, I don't know, apparently that one must have been the only one with major damage, or no other videos exist. I don't know. Interesting. Quickly taking a look at what is going on and over Long Beach, LA ports. Nat, I've been keeping track of the old stacking up of the shipments and that coming in. Talked about this in recent days of the various cargo ships, and that I think currently we're sitting at about 61. And of course, you can kind of see the log jam, as it were, sitting over Long Beach way, all waiting to hit port here. Many of them still sitting there waiting to get in. And of course, recently they decided to go to 24/7 operations. However, I think one of the issues with that, as stated in an article over the weekend, is that a lot of distributors aren't geared up to do that. So probably going to take some time to sort out, to keep an eye on it here. As far as some of the weather-related stuff here, I'll quick flash through that real quick. Looks like we got some decent storms on the old radar sweeping through the Ohio River Valley still. Probably going to affect many of you guys, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, here very shortly. As far as the storms on the water, Peter is reformed again from late yesterday. It seems to be kind of on again, off again, I suppose. And of course, we still got Odette that decided it wanted to reform here after a weekend disappearance. Not sure where exactly that guy is headed. If that guy's going to head towards Spain, or if by chance it may hit the UK. Pretty rare for that to happen, but if you remember a couple of 2-3 years ago, I believe it was, that I can't remember if it was Scotland or the UK, England, what have you, took on a storm. May see a repeat of that, I don't know. And then, of course, we got Rose on the back burner here coming up in behind Peter, so keeping tabs on that as well. So, that being said, that is going to do it for the narrated portion of the broadcast. You can catch me here today over on the old 5x5 channel, firing up at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be kicking off there. And aside from that, I'll come back and round things out at the close of the day once markets close, and we'll call it good at that time. So, appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and we'll see you back here a little bit later on. Take care, everybody.